This is Dwight Halstead down here in California, and thanks to Grampa's Two Wheels. This is the first of many videos I plan to do on this channel. Everything on this channel is going to be motorcycle related, and so I figured before I go ahead and get in that, I'll give you a little bit about my background in this particular niche. Now, I have been riding motorcycles on and off for the last 50 plus years, and I've just recently got back into riding. When I turned 70, after 20 years of not riding, I was looking around for different motorcycles to get, and I came across this Suzuki C90, which looked like the right entry level for me. And the bike weighed a little over 600 pounds, and this is actually one of the bigger bikes that I've ever owned. But I didn't want to get anything too big, and I also wanted something that's going to be comfortable to cruise around with, and something my wife could ride with me as well. So at 70 years old, I decided it was time to get back into the riding scene, because I'm not too sure, how many years I actually have left to do any additional riding. So here I am on my Suzuki Boulevard, and I bought this for a very reasonable price. It only had 8,000 miles on it, and it was a 2006. So here we are looking at a bike that's about 14, 15 years old with very low mileage, and I figured this was a great entry level to get back into. Now, one of the things that I found interesting getting back into the riding scene again after 20 years, what's different now than it was when I left cycling is YouTube. I never realized after watching so many YouTube channels, watching Jerry Palladino ride like a pro and Robert Simmons, Preloader series and some of the other cycles out there, just how much I really didn't know about riding. 30 plus years of experience out there, traveled cross country multiple times in my younger years. When I got my first motorcycle, basically it was just, here's a set of keys and have at it. So let me kind of go over some of my experiences out here, and let's just take a look. In 1971, I bought my first motorcycle, never ridden before. I bought this little Suzuki 250, TS 250 Savage. A great little bike, actually not a bad learning bike. Now, did a little bit of research on bikes, and I knew Suzukis were a good brand, so I went ahead and bought this. I was up in Ludington, Michigan at the time. I was a junior in college. And I had the summer off. I was working on a survey crew, and being up in Ludington, Michigan, there are a lot of trails to ride, plus the sand dunes out there, so I figured this would be a great first bike to ride, and also something I could ride on the street and in the dirt, so I figured this would be a great way to learn. Now, what's interesting back then, not knowing anything about motorcycles, went in there, looked at this, figured this was a great bike to get started with, and lessons included just this. Here are the keys, start the bike, one shift down for one, shift up for the next 4 gears. Here are your brakes. Here's your throttle. Good luck. And that's how I learned to ride a motorcycle. So being very intimidated by this bike, for the first week or two, I stayed pretty much in the dirt, tried to stay off the road as much as possible, and got comfortable riding it, and learned a lot. So over the course of the year of owning this motorcycle, put on almost 12,000 miles on this bike, rode lots of dirt, in the sand dunes, crashed it a few times, drove off a cliff. Luckily never went down on the road. Was out in the sand dunes in Silver Lake, Michigan, which has some great sand dunes to ride in. Learned how to ride there, let the air out of the tires. Did learn what it was like not to have the proper gear, because I did crash the bike doing about 40 miles an hour in the sand. Lost a lot of skin on my arms, and also cracked a couple of ribs in the process. So from there I began to respect the fact that having proper riding gear does make a difference. Now, the following year, I decided it was time to upgrade to something a little faster, something that I could go on the road and go on some trips with. So being a little ahead of my time, I bought this TS, let's see, what was this called? It was the TS 400, and Apache. This was the Suzuki Apache, 1972, I think. And on this bike, I owned it for a couple of years, put a little over 15,000 miles on it, made some cross-country trips with it, as well as riding the dirt, hill climb, a bunch of other things. This was a very fun bike to ride. Learned a lot. Did a lot of hill climbing with it. Loved the extra torque and power. I went up a lot of hills, did a lot of jumping with this, and made some cross country trips. Put a backpack on, and made a few trips. My longest trip on this bike was about 1,000 miles over a week, and really got into the nuts and bolts of biking. I learned a lot. Rode this thing in the winter, rode it on snow, rode it on ice. So I learned a lot about controls of the seat of the pants. Following year, I got married. Decided I wanted something that was a road bike, something that would be more comfortable. So I went ahead and bought a Suzuki 550. Now, on this bike, I love the two-stroke. It was well affordable. And on this particular bike, I put a Windjammer fairing on it, which was the hottest fairing at the time. Had pockets on the side. Put saddlebags, base saddlebags on the side, the sissy bar, and of course the luggage rack. This particular machine took my wife and I out to California and back. We did a 10,000-mile trip, leaving from Michigan, heading along the northern borders, down the west coastline, and back across. 2 months on the road, carrying with this motorcycle. Had a lot of great experiences on it. It's the first year that we were married, and the 550 did a great job. It held up for the full almost 12,000 miles on the road. It hit lots of rainstorms. What was interesting with this, with everything on it, the bike weighed less than probably 600 pounds total. So it was definitely a great ride. And again, looking back on what's out there today versus what we had back then, we definitely were a little ahead of our times. Decided it was time to move up. So the following year, I wanted a little bigger bike. So then I moved up to the Suzuki 750 Water Buffalo, two-stroke, 3 cylinders. As a matter of fact, I used to joke I had a Honda 600 car, and that particular car only had 2 cylinders. It was 600 cc's, and my motorcycle was 3 cylinders and 750 cc's. Now this bike was incredible. On this particular bike, the following summer, we went ahead and did almost a 2-month trip going up through Canada, Ontario, up to Nova Scotia, around Newfoundland, down into Boston and New York, and back across again. And had a great time. Smooth, ran like a champ. And even though it was at that time was one of the heavier motorcycles in the marketplace, it was like I think a little over 600 pounds. Handled really well. Put about 20,000 miles on that. Shortly after that, we sold that. Then I bought a 32-foot motorhome, and we traveled cross country on that. And did ride for a couple of years, and then got my next motorcycle. I found somebody who used to. Oh, there's the 35-foot motorhome. And then we went ahead and, of course, I wound up in New Mexico. This is where we lived. And so my next bike is I went ahead and bought it. I found at this time would have been a 10-year-old Water Buffalo. Didn't have a lot of miles on it, and went ahead and rode that for a while. Shortly thereafter, we moved to Arizona, and I bought my first Honda Interstate. This is 1974, and it had now the one that I had a windshield on it, and I rode this in Arizona for a couple of years. Shortly after that, we moved back to Michigan, and when I got to Michigan, I got the Honda Shadow 1100 Shadow. This was a great bike with a windshield, and had that for the next few years. And then around 2002, wound up having to get rid of it, and then have not had a bike since 2002. Here we are in 2020. I went ahead and found the Suzuki Boulevard. This is it right here, and learned how and actually got back into riding again. Now, in those 20 years, a lot has changed. I didn't realize that I never even knew about counter steering or being able to turn in an 18-foot radius and lean angles. These are all stuff that I just did naturally. So getting back in and relearning again and getting back on the bike, following natural instincts was fine, but this was actually one of the heavier bikes that I ever owned. So it took a while to get used to this and learning how to do the slow turns and how to maneuver on the low end of the scale and everything else. After having this for a year, I decided I wanted to step up and get into something a little bit bigger. And so then I moved up to what I'm currently riding now. Hang on. Which is the Kawasaki Voyager. Now, the reason why I jumped into this, I went from a 2006 to 2018. I began to realize that some of the modern conveniences of it's on bikes, I definitely want to take advantage of it. So this has the ABS. The Voyager has the ABS brakes, has the link, so when you hit the rear brake, it also operates the front brake, and so I wanted that safety margin on this. Now this obviously is one of the heaviest bikes that I've ever owned. This is a little over 900 pounds completely loaded up. This is the biggest bike I've ever ridden, and it had the handle. I was a little intimidated at first with it, but I realized it was only a couple 100 pounds heavier than the Suzuki, and I figured I could learn how to ride this. So what I'll be doing in this channel is I will be going over and sharing with you my learning experiences of learning how to, number one, how to handle a 900-pound motorcycle, and also some of the equipment, tools, and things that I have bought to make not only my riding safer, but also more enjoyable, and just my learning curve on this. You know, one of the things bringing this channel up is to update, is to inform people on some of the new products that are out there and things that make riding more comfortable, and also some of the trips and the types of trips and what you can do to be more comfortable, and the fact just to share with individuals that even though I'm 71 now and have not ridden in 20 years, if you're capable and healthy and have a sense of balance, why not get back into it while you can? Is encourage people to go ahead and learn how to start riding again. So right now I'm going to share with you a quick video, one of the training videos I had, just relearning how to ride this. And on this video you will see different stages of riding, and of course I encourage anybody who is getting back in or gets one of these bigger motorcycles, definitely take the time to get on YouTube and see some great training videos on there, and then learn, go look at the Ride Like a Pro series with Jerry Palladino, and also the newest guy on the block right now is Robert Simmons, who does a great job of instructing you how to ride a bike at lower skill level, especially heavy bikes, and learn about the preloaders on that. So definitely check out both Ride Like a Pro channel and check out the Robert Simmons preload channel. Both those channels are great ways to learn. So go ahead and just watch the little practice session. One of the things that I learned is it is necessary to get out there and practice and start learning some of the new skills. And I always knew about the friction zone, but I never realized how much it helps control the speed of the bike, and also how to use the rear brake in order to control things. Probably did all this instinctively before. Leaning, counter steering, all this was all new to me. I never realized, when I learned a bike, basically, here's the keys, 1 down, 4 up, here's the throttle, here's the brakes, and just go. Everything else from that is what I learned through trial and error. Probably the biggest blessing I had when I first started riding was getting the dirt bike and riding in the dirt, learning how to slide, how to spill, how not to hit the front brake, when to use the front brake, how to keep it upright, how to slide the rear wheels out, and when the bike gets squirrely, not to get upset. Just let the bike do what it does, because it wants to stay up. So with this is the first video on this. I don't claim to be an expert or anything else. I'm just relating to you. I'll be relating to my experiences and what I've learned over the years of riding, and what I'm relearning now that I'm getting back into back into the motorcycle world again. So hope you enjoy, and I appreciate you taking a look at the channel, and make sure to hit the subscribe button and the bell down below, so when I put out new content and new information, you can see what I'm up to. So everybody have a great riding experience. Make sure you keep the shiny side up, rubber side down, and more importantly, enjoy. And the motorcycle is as safe as you make it, and so take the time to learn, wear the proper gear, and enjoy. All right, with that, everybody have a great time, and watch for my next video. Bye now.